Hey, Claire.
Hey, good morning. We're live.
We are. We're doing two back to back this morning. So if you're catching us on the live YouTube, that is why we're in the same outfit.
Yes.
Only girls would notice this.
Very true.
um, and because of when we entered the studio, you're on the left and I'm now on the right, which is always funny to me when we're looking at our stuff. I know. So if you're listening, you kind of get a picture of what it's like for our
Yes.
recording. I have a
We can always switch them too.
fancy. Yeah. No, let's be different this time. You on the left and me on the right.
All right, I like it. We'll switch it up.
Yeah. We just finished your other podcast, which is so enlightening. So um I'm just excited to get healthy and even next level it. And so I'm inspired after that one. So if you haven't listened to episode on the seed oils, pause this and hop over and listen to the other one.
Yes.
Listen to
Yeah.
hers, then come back to mine.
There we go.
But we're gonna just kind of dive in, and I wanted to talk about the freshman 15 because I was inspired by this episode with a gentleman who's in my Gilbert Half training program, and he's working on some big heart goals because his health is not at a good place, and so he's walking the 5K. And so I've been joining him after doing some running with the other runners. I'll finish up the training with him, and he was just sharing like how he's got to be in his 60s, is my guess, late 50s, and he's put on a lot of weight, and he travels, like he's gone every single week traveling, and he's hotel life. And he said, I used to be really fit. I was in football back in high school, and it just inspired me to talk about the freshman 15 because even if we're not in our 18, going from high school to college, we do have a lot of transitions in our life that cause us to quote unquote gain that freshman 15. And how do we work in a lifestyle space to not gain that? So
Mhm.
we were chatting, and he was saying, people will place goals, and he'll have goals to like lose weight, and then he gets to that goal, and then you're kind of it's like, up, made it out the window. And so some of the goals that people have had are, there's a beach trip coming up, so I want to look on point and whatever that goal is for you. And then you show up, you look awesome for your vacation, and then you get back and you fizzle out of your gym routine, or you're still in like vacation mode, eating what you want. Another one is you're getting married or you're in a wedding and you want to look great. And so you and your hubby to be are getting in the workouts and doing all the things. And then all of a sudden you're back from your honeymoon. And I've watched time and time again of couples over the years just put on weight after
Mhm.
their wedding. And it doesn't have to be like that. Or even the people I'm training with the Gilbert Half, like when you're finished with this half marathon, 5K or 10K, like the training and the time that you've invested into your body to get into a healthy state and cross the finish line with your personal goals doesn't mean that like you just have to put weight back on. So the key,
Mhm.
how do we transition out of a goal into a lifestyle, or what's the next goal you can have in place? And
Mhm.
so, Claire and I, we both have had different fun travel things on our calendar over the years, and we have different things that we want to look our best for. And we, tighten up our food a little, and we hit the mark that we want, and then we, like everybody else, come back into life. So I wanted to just share the transition for me when I like I didn't even go off to college. I just went from high school into beauty school, and I put on the 15, freshman
Mhm.
15, because I was sitting around all summer, and I went from being active into sedentary and just, watching all the fun reruns at the summer, in Minnesota. And I put on weight, and then I came into beauty school and I was like, this is not good. Like, I
Mm.
feel that difference. And so I just started changing my food. That's all I did because my work and school schedule was crazy. But I just made, that mindful transition with my food. And that allowed me to start getting the pounds off and getting healthy, even in a 15-hour day schedule between school and work. So,
Mhm.
and I know, Claire, share with a space of time where you had some transition.
Yeah, I feel like growing up, it was like a slow transition to like be overweight. That was more my transition. And I kind of woke up
Mhm.
my freshman year. So I kind of had a negative or an opposite, like
Right.
lose 15 my freshman year once I started
Mhm.
learning. So it's really interesting to look back and like see my transition, but I have so many friends and I love your frame on the freshman 15 of like this is like the ageless freshman 15. This could
Mhm.
be at any age where you're going through a transition. It's so true. Like people even just get in relationships. They start dating someone new. They start going
Mhm.
on more dates. They start, oh, I'm comfortable with who I'm with. So I
I
don't it doesn't
call I
matter.
call those I call those the love pounds.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're like, in love, and you're eating out and you're doing things that you're not used to doing. Um,
Maybe putting your workouts on hold to hang out with your
mhm,
partner, different things
mhm,
like that.
yeah. So, but you're right, Claire, because you've shared in other episodes just of how you had the weight on and transitioned into, getting healthy at a younger point in time. Um, But how do we make sure we don't put on those pounds after we reach a goal or have a life transition? And it's important to set yourself up with the next goal.
Mhm.
So if that goal is another race, if that goal is um, just a lifestyle change, what does that goal look like within? Is it keeping that workout 3 days a week? Is it, using a smaller bowl or a smaller plate to just keep that momentum going when you get to the other side? Um, then there's the tapering off. So let's say you're in that training mode, whatever that is, and you hit the goal and you cross the finish line. How do you transition your body to taper? So it isn't going to a zero of, oh, I'm done. I'm like, take your time, take a few days off, take a week off, and
Mhm.
then make that action plan for when you get back into, your routine of, okay, I committed to those days already, so I'm going to commit to them, and it's going to look like this. So it's just creating that tapering, because it isn't sustainable to maybe train in the volume that you were for whatever you were working towards. And that can be a life event, a vacation, but how do you taper from where you were in such a peak of training for that thing and then come off of that? Again, that's just
I'm
kind of, go ahead.
I'm curious because you've gone through a crazy like one of the most like you really have to be really strict because you did a bikini competition, right?
Mhm.
How did
Yep.
you taper out of that? Because you have firsthand experience of like, okay, like all in, go super hard
Intense.
before this event. Like, is
Yeah.
there anything specific like from your experience with that helped you?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, excuse me, I paid somebody, but it was a part of
Hire
the
a health
plan.
coach.
Yeah, we know two of them. No, I was under a coach and through the process to get to stage, but I also knew that it was just as valuable to taper out of that. And so in the space of bodybuilding and competing, they call it reverse dieting. So that means you're slowly adding food back in weekly,
Mm.
and you're you're giving your body rest physically, but you're not just eating whatever and not working out. So there's a very specific game plan that helps you transition out of it. And if I have any Gilbert Half Marathon people listening, reach out to me because it is such a high to get to that goal. And for me, it was getting on the stage 3 different times and knowing like the reward was there, but then you're done. Like you're just done. Like you have it all this time and you don't have to hold back on your fun foods. And so it was really just having a plan of action and reminding myself, and I'm very this part is easy for me. So, but I get into the mindset of maybe where it'd be harder for somebody, but just think about the fact that you will get to those foods and it's not a
Mhm.
restriction. It just is being mindful and then also doing the transitions is actually protecting your metabolism and for women hormones. So
Mhm.
that's just kind of the thing that created more weight for me in my mindset is knowing like, yeah, I'll have those fun foods that I've put on hold for a while, but I just don't need to go crazy because eventually
Mhm.
I'll get those added in. And that's yeah, that's where maintenance was key. Once I got to that level, we had a goal of caloric intake, and then the maintenance was, in the 2,000 to 2,200 calories. So I knew I would get there.
I love that. So having a plan is number one, like
Mhm,
expecting it, knowing that going through this transition, you're going to have more stress. You might have less time. You might have certain things going into this transition, like going into school, for example. Maybe people were used
mhm.
to playing sports in high school. Now you're not going
Yep.
to have the sports. You know, you need to be more mindful about uh, your nutrition. And that's same with any transition at any age.
Yeah, find a rec league, like you do
Mhm.
softball, I've done volleyball, and those are things to keep active and fun and but yeah, plan of action. And then we chatted keeping your food in check. It's just being mindful of how much is on your plate, understanding your caloric burn is different. So how do you adjust to the lower burn but still get the correct fuel? And that's where
Mhm.
having a coach is helpful. Um,
Absolutely.
and then ask yourself why? Like, why is this goal important for me to keep? Like
Mhm.
the bigger goal, the lifestyle goal. And when you can understand your value for yourself, and I'm going to touch into just a little like self love and care, but when you really do value who you are and what's important for your body to be healthy, that why should trump anything else. Like looking great in a swimming suit. It should
Mhm.
trump, who you're looking good next to or whatever our natural like vain thought processes are. But it's really to come back to self and say like I'm worth eating clean. I'm worth that lifestyle of like exercise because I'm a value and doing these things are an investment back into my health and the people around me. So
Oh, it's
that's
so
that's what I lean
important.
into.
And
What's your
having that
wins?
emotional, so just like quickly, I start every coaching session whenever I meet someone with, okay,
Mhm.
why do you want to make these changes before we even talk about anything else? Like, why do you feel like you need to make a change? Because how is it negative? How is not making the change negatively affecting you now? And how is it going to negatively affect you later if you don't? And
Right.
then what like why do you want to do this for it could be a family member. You want to have something emotional that is attached to your why, not just, oh,
Mhm.
I want to be healthy. Because I get
Right.
that all the time. It's so easy to just say, oh, well, I want to be healthy. I want to live longer. But why? Why do you want to
Mhm.
do that? It's
Mhm.
deeper. You have to have a deeper reason because things are going to get hard throughout this process. You're not going to always want to make these decisions. It's not going to be easy every day. You're not going to wake up and say, oh, I want to eat healthy. It's easier to not. I want to work out today. It's easier to not. So you
Mhm.
have to have something that's going to emotionally drive you to make those decisions that are for yourself and maybe are for things that you want to accomplish in the future. For example, I want to be able to hike when I'm 90. I want to be able to
Yes.
get outside. I want to move. I want to be able to actually like get up off my chair. I see people all day long who one of our goals is just to practice getting out of a chair because they can't do it.
Mhm.
They
Wow.
can't do something like sit on the ground with their grandkids. They can't do
Mhm.
anything on the floor. They cannot get on the floor. And I doing these things like these small things, they might not seem like a lot now, but you have to have your why of why you want to like be able to do those things later and really think ahead. So that's one of my whys is be able to move, be able to get up, be able to be on the floor, be able to
Mhm.
get out of the house. Like I just see people every day who can't even like go to the grocery store or can't their goal is to walk around their house a lap each
Mhm.
day, get 1,000 steps in the day, but I want to be able to get 10,000 steps when I'm
Mhm.
8 and I want to like have a sharp mind and still like not lose my memory. I have a family history of memory loss as they get older, like dementia. So
Mhm.
those are my whys. Is like I want to
Mhm.
be there. I want to like be myself when I'm older.
No, it's so good, and whys can change. I wanted to
Mhm.
touch on that too because our why can change, and that's where it's writing that down and recognizing like, yeah, I'm in a new space of life and I now have this as a why. For
Mhm.
me as a parent, a lot of my life has been like the why with Logan attached. And now that why will always be there, but because he's growing up and he's not living under this roof, within the next less than a year, that my why is going to look a little different. And
Mhm.
and that's part of like my mindfulness to know those shifts and transitions are coming up and that with those just reflecting back on the why. And I think we could find time to do an episode on whys because James, my boyfriend, works with students in their dissertation, their doctoral program. So he works on the dissertation, and that's can be up to a 5-year program, depending on if you're working full time. But he has a speech to all them is the why because
Mhm.
when it's tough, when the paper and the reading, and my girlfriend currently is going through her doctoral program, just started. She's like, the reading is so much right now. And like, because she's on the front end of the process and her program's 3 years. But it's when it gets tough, when you're tired, when you have just normal work life happening, what is that why that pushes you to finish that doctorate? So that's a brain, that's in the space of your mental uh piece versus like you and I are chatting our physical health. But whys are everywhere in life, you know?
And it keeps you going. I remember going through pre-med, like I was barely sleeping, but I was literally feeling like, oh, I'm showing up my best. Like I don't care if I
Mhm.
slept 4 hours. Like I'm showing up because I have the biggest why. I attach my purpose to why I'm doing this. I want to like help kids with obesity. That was my why. Is like
Mhm.
I'm doing every single minute of this studying and I'm losing every minute of sleep because I have such a strong purpose and such a strong why to what I'm doing that it never made it hard to do it. I never
Mhm.
got irritated with it because I just had such a strong association with that. So I really, really recommend that if it is taking you a second to think of it, like really dive in and think of it.
Yeah,
Think about it.
it's true. And like because we started this episode with the whys of that wedding you're going to be a part of, or you are
Mhm.
the main character, or that vacation that you have coming up. Those were the natural whys. Like it's a
Mhm.
tangible why because you have an event coming up. But there's going to be times where there isn't as strong of an a why or an event to create the why.
Mhm.
So that's where Claire and I are just kind of expressing that value of really understanding your value, that
Mhm.
you're important, because that should be the why that lands in every space of our life, you know?
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that.
I mean, this was a short episode, but I feel like it's power packed, and we all are going through life transitions, and to keep ourselves on that healthy lifestyle train, and that we don't have to be subject to, oh, well, I hit the goal, and then you're just kind of lost, afterwards,
Mhm.
because there's no direction. But I'm a
Yeah.
goal person. Like Claire and I both can attest to like how we are always thinking of the next goal, whether it's traveling or, some kind of personal work goal. I mean, there's always something in the horizon for us, which creates us to have a bunch of whys. We're showing up in those spaces. Um, but, that's the love that we have for our life to look a certain way. And
Mhm.
Claire and I will be sitting here doing podcasts in our 80s, maybe. I
There we
don't know.
go.
Hiking up Camelback with our, fun
Yes.
technology of remote recordings, which we could do
Yes.
that now, and we've talked about it. So
Yes.
we just have to get out and connect and do a podcast at a
We need to make that
destination.
happen.
Yeah.
I love this.
But it's short and sweet episode today.
Yeah, Ange, what's your action?
I'm gonna dig a little deeper on some whys because of my, empty nest uh transition that's coming up in the next 8 months. I mean, to be honest, I've already started like grieving and crying, and I didn't even know this was a thing. Like
Oh,
to
yeah.
have like this. I was talking to my mom and I was like crying, and I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, he's here for 8 more months, and
Oh.
but I was. It's like a process, and then I talked to my cousin who's got 4 kids, and they're all now graduated in different pace. She's like, no, this is normal, and I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
So I want to have like a plan, to say I still have a very powerful why with my kid. It's just going to look different because he's not under this roof. And I
Mhm.
think that'll help my transition to a little bit better to how I'll fill in some pockets of time that aren't the same.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like the why, kind of a connection here, but it's still like a valuable thing that weighs on me as I need to
Yeah.
navigate. So,
Oh.
yeah, little like raw moment here of Ange.
Yeah.
But Claire, what's your clarification to today's episode?
I would say no matter what stage you're in, I mean the freshman 15 can still apply, and just make sure you have a plan going into it. And I really liked what you said, Ange, is write down your why, like figure out what it is, write it down, and maybe even put it up in your house somewhere, maybe like put it on a sticky note and just remind yourself all the time,
Mhm,
why am I
mhm,
doing this? When you're making decisions, just think like when you don't want to do it, go back to that every time.
mhm. So good. I was picturing a Post-it note, so I'm glad you said
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Well, thanks, Claire, for tuning in with me today and just going over these life lessons.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for leading this. I think this is a great episode, and we'll see you all next week.